Welcome to the Garden Angelist, where we talk about flowers, veggies, and all the best dirt. I'm Dee Nash from Guthrie, Oklahoma, where I garden on 7.5 acres out in the country.
And I'm Carol Michael from Indianapolis, Indiana. I have a suburban garden measured in square feet, less than a third of an acre.
We call ourselves Garden Angelists because we are evangelists for gardening. We love gardening and we want others to love it too.
Yes, we do. And we aren't afraid to spill the beans and tell all of our gardening secrets, the good, the bad, and even the ugly. But that's enough about who, what, when, where. Let's move on to this week's episode. Hello, Dee.
Hello, Carol. How's it going?
It's all good.
It's good here too. Beautiful weather. I heard it was a little cold at your house.
It was. And we are recording this podcast a little bit earlier than we normally record it. So, yes, we've had some chilly temperatures. No frost yet. And I don't see any frost for several weeks. So, still, there's a chill in the air.
Yeah, it got down to 54 here. I still haven't brought in my houseplants yet, but I plan to do that in a week or so. We'll see if I make it. I mean, we'll see. So what have you been doing in the garden this week?
So I've been chugging along with fall cleanup, and there's two ways people do it. Some people go out and get it all done at once, and some people just kind of chug along a little at a time, and I've done it both ways, and I decided this fall I'm chugging along a little at a time so that by the time the snow flies, everything will be pretty much ready, and I won't be in a big panic.
Right, and you'll have it done. And there's also that theory, if you like to do gardening for pollinators, that you shouldn't clean up every single stick anyway.
Right.
So over in your garden that has the asters and the goldenrod and the coneflowers and stuff, yeah.
I will admit that I do end up cutting some of that stuff back, but I'll leave the stems lie there, so if something's living inside of it, it'll live. Then
Right.
I clean it up in the spring. But so dry, Dee, so dry.
I'm
Still
sorry
dry.
it's so dry. It's getting dry here, but compared to normal, no. I bought more native plants.
I'm
and
not surprised.
you're not. It's that time of year. And I put them in my meadow. So I bought Veronicastrum virginicum, which is Culver's root. I bought little blue stem, split beard blue stem. Those are grasses. And then I bought a gray-headed coneflower. I bought 3 of those. And I bought 3 of elegant latris. And I put all those in the upper meadow. And I've also been up there pulling up grasses I don't want. Like I had to spray the Johnson grass and to kill it. And now I'm pulling it up. It's dying a slow, very slow death. And I'm sure there'll be more of it next year. But, I don't like to spray things, but sometimes I have to use an over-the-top spray to keep it from taking over the meadow.
Yeah,
so
and
I did that.
I was over at my sister's. She lives in the house we grew up in, but somehow they had planted ivy on the north side of their house.
Oh,
she spent all summer pulling ivy out of the north side and is that east? That's west side. And she's pretty much got it cleared off the west side, and it looks really good. On the east side, they just took a weed whacker to it over and over again. Mm-hmm. So I told her, I said, you're just going to have to start pulling it out. And, every little piece that comes back up, you're just going to have to pull it and pull it and pull it. She thought about solarizing that area.
Yeah, and that's an option if you can get it hot enough.
Right. And
to kill the roots. That's always the issue.
The problem is it's the north side of the house. And I did some research for her, and it's really something you want to do in like July. And then July, early August. It's too late now, so they're just going to keep trying to pull it out, which is all you can do. Yeah.
At some point, when they get it mostly eradicated, they may have to spray a few sprigs to just finally get rid of it. But like I said, I hate to spray, so I try not to if I don't have to.
That's a good thing to do, Dee.
But if it's poison ivy and it's in a place where I have to be, because I have poison ivy out here. It's a native plant and I live in the country, but I don't get near it. But if it's a place where I have to be, I'm going to probably spray it and then use a bag to pull it out, where you invert the bag and pull it out.
Right.
So there are times when you have to do this kind of thing, as much as I hate chemicals. But anyway, so about the fall cleanup, I leave my whole perennial garden up until early spring, right when it starts to warm, because I figure if the bugs haven't gotten out of the stems by then, well, I have to clean it up eventually. The upper pasture, though, I am going to mow it in about October so that I can cast some more seed. But we can talk about that then.
Yeah, I do want to mention something. You know, you brought up poison ivy, and every once in a while I'll see a little sprig of poison ivy, and it's from birds dropping the seeds. And I've actually seen it at my sister's condo, which is, I don't want to say a sterile environment, but there's not a lot growing over there. But earlier this summer, she had poison ivy in and amongst this rose. So we took care of it. But on my daily walk, I pass a tree that's just on the property on the other side of the neighborhood. And this tree is covered with Chinese bittersweet, which is a vine.
Oh, that's the worst.
And people think it's a beautiful vine. It has those orange foliage or berries.
Orange berries. Yeah, it does.
And I look at that and I think, this is why I keep finding Oriental bittersweet in my garden, and I keep pulling it up because I know what it looks like, and I know how it can just be a mess if you don't. And there's another place I walk by, somebody's planting, and it's got Oriental bittersweet in it. And I keep thinking that I should tell them to pull that out as best they can, or it's going to be a mess.
Yeah. Or have somebody come do it for them,
But that's
because
the thing.
It's really hard to get out. It's hard to get out.
It is. But that's the thing. So some of our invasives like honeysuckle and
trumpet vine,
euonymus, and Oriental bittersweet, I find they stay green longer in the fall, and that makes them an easy thing to find. And you do want to pull those out. So even if you let your whole garden stand because you want to protect the pollinators, etc., do go through and look for the invasives and pull those out.
That's a really good tip. I hadn't thought about that. They green up faster too.
Yes.
A lot of times. I'm seeing a whole lot of autumn clematis here. And it's in my garden, and I pull it up everywhere all the time. And I will look for it when everything goes down, everything goes dormant, and dig some more of it up. I planted it 32 years ago, took it out pretty fast, but it was too late. And a lot of people love it. They think it's beautiful because it blooms in the fall, but it is very invasive. So
we can do a whole episode on that. Maybe next time we'll talk about the difference between Clematis ternifolia, which is the autumn
native. Right?
No,
that's the one that's bad.
That's the one that's bad. That's the sweet autumn clematis that you want to pull out. And then there's Clematis virginiana, which is the good one.
Native. Like you know what? That'll be a great topic for next time. There's American bittersweet, which looks a lot like Chinese bittersweet, except for the berries are on the very end.
And I'll make a note.
There's things, make a note for us. We also have a note on our notes that we're not to forget our updates on our garden commission. And our garden commission was to give an area in our garden some attention, right? And
the area that's just keeps getting neglected, and just take care of it. And I have a small bed outside of my sunroom on the east side. And I've made great strides. It's not actually planted yet, but I've made great strides. It's weeded out, and it's ready for me to choose what to plant in there. And so I just need to do that.
Good job.
And I will plant it. How about you?
And I'm going to guess that mine was to also finish that bed. And I did, the one that I expanded. And I moved, I still have a couple of things to move from the other part of that bed, but I moved a bunch of it this morning, and I need to go put I want some dwarf fountain grass along the edge. So I'm going to go buy some of that after we're done recording. If I'm not too tired, I'm kind of tired because I went and planted in the upper pasture. And that's always hard. I water it first. If you guys have an area that you're putting natives in that doesn't have a lot of improvement to the soil, which a lot of times you don't want because Oklahoma natives are used to yucky soil, water it first and let it soak in before you dig it, because it is hard as a freaking rock this time of year.
True everywhere. So I have a quote for us, and we'll get on topic of what our topic is. So here's the quote. Gardeners instinctively know that flowers and plants are a continuum, and that the wheel of garden history will always be coming full circle. One lifetime is never enough to accomplish one's horticultural goals. If a garden is a sight for the imagination, how can we be very far from the beginning? By Frank Cabot.
Well, that's a deep quote.
It is. We'll talk more about Frank towards the end.
Okay, cool. So I agree. I think the longer I live and the longer I garden, the less I know in many ways. I know a lot, but I am always trying to learn about something new. And right now I'm learning more about natives. And before we went on today, I said, I think natives are hard. I think they're harder than cultivated plants because you can find more information about those.
That's true.
There's some good places. So this week's real topic, though, is the most expensive flower we ever bought. And the reason we're talking about that is because of our book.
Right.
That we talk about on the bookshelf in a little bit. So do you want to go first?
I'll go first because mine pales in comparison. So, and it was about the time I had moved to my house here, which was like 23 years ago. And so I don't want to say I was house poor, but I had a big mortgage. So I went and I found this variegated false sunflower, and it was Heliopsis Helanthiodes Lorraine Sunshine. And it was the most beautiful variegated foliage. And that sucker was $15. And I had never spent $15 on a perennial in a gallon pot. And I did the little inflation conversion, and it would be the same as spending $24. And I still think $24 is a lot for a perennial in a gallon pot even. So
it is a lot.
And I still, thank God, I still have the variegated false sunflower out there. And every year it casts some seeds. And the seeds come up as just plain old false sunflower, which can be an invasive son of a gun. And so I also have that in the garden in different places. And where it self-sows in a place that I think is appropriate, I'll leave it. But variegated false sunflower is the most expensive perennial I ever remember buying. Now, I've spent a lot more than that on plants, but that one always stuck out in my mind. That was sort of like the beginning of, geez, you're going to spend a lot on your garden, Carol.
So my question is, if you want more of the variegated, did it spread? Well, did it spread very much? Because variegated plants don't tend to be quite as aggressive as their species.
It is not aggressive, and it's not nearly as big. And so what I do is I watch it, and if there is a non-variegated shoot, I'll cut that off. But I do get some seedlings that are variegated, and it's just kind of in this one layer area. But on its own, it's not a big, impressive plant, other than this foliage is beautiful.
Yeah, it sounds lovely. I've never even heard of this plant. Okay, so mine's a lot more money. A few years ago, we did the regional daylily tour, the regional Hemicalis tour.
Yeah.
And I was on it. And I knew that they would want to see newer plants. So for the 2 years before I was on tour, I bought plants at regular retail prices, and new daylily cultivars, especially if they're ones that it's like a famous hybridizer, they're expensive. So I probably spent $200 for a regional daylily. Not a regional daylily, a daylily for the regional tour. Regional hybridizers are not as expensive. Yeah, $200. Yeah, soak that up, people. And you know what? I have some of those plants, but I always say that if you spend $200 on a daylily, it's more likely to die than the one that's $15. And so I really don't usually buy expensive. I buy them after they've been out a few years.
So did yours die, your $200 daylily?
Well, there was more than one. I think I bought 3 for that tour, and one did die. One is fine. It's not that impressive. It should not be a $200 daylily. And then the other one I really like, and it's called Killer Bees. And I want to say it's a Scott Elliott daylily, but I'm just doing this off the top of my head, so nobody come and be upset with me, but I'm pretty sure it is. And it's a really cool flower. But the truth is, I tend to like daylilies that are more simple structures, except for Victorian lace. So I can do the ones that are a lot less expensive. So there you go. I did that, and I also bought an Ito peony, or Ito, if you pronounce it that way. That's an intersectional peony, and you've bought it too. I bought Barzella when it first came out. I think it was $90.
I bought it at Sam's Club 2 summers ago. And I think it was $29.99, and I grabbed it. And actually, the little greenhouse around the corner, she said, for that price, you should have bought them all. And she said, I'd have paid you for them because she was selling them for $80.
Right. So you got a good deal on that one. And I'm sure that the way they got those out so fast is they tissue cultured a bunch of them.
But here's the thing, Dee.
Long story short, I don't have Barzella either. Barzella died.
So I have Barzella, but she did not bloom this spring. I planted her last year. She did not bloom. And so it might be that I have it too deep or something. I don't know. So it's like, I hope it blooms next spring. Otherwise,
I have not had very good luck with intersectional peonies, and I don't have very good luck with tree peonies, and I've tried them both. I have good luck with plain old peonies, plain old herbaceous.
That's right.
Are we done with this?
Yeah, I think we're done with confessing how much we've spent on plants that didn't turn out to be what they were supposed to be. But that's okay.
I mean,
Live
if
and
we
learn.
got to talking about that very extensively, I have spent so much money over the years, and now I just don't anymore. Not like that.
Well, I was talking to my sister, and there's some areas that she wants to add plants to and stuff. And I says, in the spring, you could dig up this whole clump of hostas, for example, split it up into about 6 plants, and there's your 6 hostas. So don't rush out and buy a bunch of hostas. Same with her coneflowers and black-eyed Susans. I says they're going to come up in the spring, and then you can kind of spread them out. They'll give them room, and they will be luscious. You don't have to buy a lot of more plants.
Yeah, I've noticed that my aster that I love so much, the bluebird aster, the smooth aster, it has finally started seeding about just a little bit, and I dig all those up and I move them places because those are free plants, y'all. All right, so you want to go on to our quote? You want me to do it this time?
Yes, please.
Emotions and sensuality are what a garden is all about. We should be transported from our regular preoccupations. With an open heart and soul, we can be receptive to the images, scents, sounds, spaces, and views that surround us, as well as to the touch of the wind and the rain, to the peace everlasting of the genius of the place. Frank Cabot. That's kind of lofty for vegetables.
Well, I couldn't come up with one, but what made me think about it was we should be transported from our regular preoccupations. And so I think the vegetable garden.
Oh, Lord knows we need to do that.
A vegetable garden is a place to just go out and putter around and plant a few vegetables. And so I made it fit, Dee.
We also wanted to talk a little bit about failure because there was that article that came out this week. I think it was in the Wall Street Journal or maybe the Washington Post. And it was about how all these people started gardening this year and they're ready to throw in the trowel, as it were. And I was like, oh my goodness, they only spent a few months. It is really hard to learn to garden. We will not lie to you, people. I think sometimes garden communicators have made it all sound so easy. It's not easy. It takes a lot of time.
It takes time, and there's a lot of trial and error, and you never know exactly what's going to work. And so I feel bad if people rushed out there and during the pandemic and threw some seeds in the ground and either nothing came up or, by July they had a weed patch or whatever. You either like it or you don't.
Right. Or they didn't know to water.
Yeah. So you got to get out there and keep trying.
It's just like any other craft. So we thought we would talk about a vegetable or an herb that we tried to grow, even though it was almost impossible in our climate. What's yours?
Well, you know what? I don't really have anything that I've tried to grow. But I did say that I have never really tried to grow watermelons because I always feel like watermelons need a really long, hot season that I don't have. And that by the time that came towards the end of the year, the vines would have all died up and shriveled off. And so I should try watermelons next year because I just talk myself out of it. I just say, well, it's a useless waste of space. So I should talk myself into trying it.
If you do decide to do it, pick one of the little icebox type watermelons. They're easy.
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't pick a great big old fashioned one. It would have to be like
And the truth is, there's some really good people that grow watermelons that are really good at it.
Yes.
That's what I say.
Yeah. And they take a lot of
them.
room. They take a lot of space.
And they have specific fertilization, specific water. Watering.
You just talked me out of trying watermelon. So there you go. I am not growing watermelon. End of story. Next.
Okay. I've grown them. They're hard and I don't grow them anymore. But I finally grew something that actually worked, and it's lavender. I finally succeeded with lavender. I mean, I've really succeeded. And I think I know why. It's in the potager in a raised bed where it gets really sharp drainage, and it's right up against a wall that is made of colored concrete. They're blocks. And it likes soil that's alkaline, and it likes really sharp drainage, and it doesn't like much fertilization.
Right.
And I finally made those requirements happen.
That's good, because lavender, and this is where, if you know where the origin of the plant is, it's a Mediterranean plant.
It certainly helps.
And so it's hot, it's dry. And so lavender, the hotter, the drier, the better. And people will kill lavender faster by mulching around it and, trying to make it like moist soil. That's sure to kill it.
That'll kill it so fast you won't. And you know what? And even in your best efforts, if you grow 5 plants of lavender, you're going to have one that just up and dies, just curls its toes up and dies. And so I just know that. And so I just take that one out, and then I put in another one, and I don't worry about it. I used to take it so personally, and I just don't anymore. I'm like, you know what, lavender? Most of you are happy, and it's not the easiest herb to grow. I think rosemary is a lot easier, but it likes crummy soil. And it likes it hot and dry.
Well, I'll tell you, if we took it personally every time a plant died in our gardens, Dee, we'd probably have to have extensive therapy sessions, because, I mean, that is I don't want to say it's a weekly occurrence that a plant just sort of up and dies, but, I noticed this spring and summer, it's like I had this really pretty clematis, and it was more of a bush type. And it was called Sirius Black, and it had really, 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 really dark, almost black leaves, and it was beautiful.
Like Harry Potter.
Yeah. But it wasn't spelled like Sirius. It was spelled like Sirius.
I got it.
But anyway, really dark leaves.
It wasn't spelled like the character. It was spelled like the word Sirius.
Exactly.
Right?
And it disappeared. And I'm thinking, it disappeared? Oh, no.
Oh.
Anyway.
Yeah. It's always that pricey, weird plant.
It wasn't that expensive.
I'm talking to you.
Yeah. The bigger the price tag, the more likely it is to, not always,
croak.
But a lot of the time. A lot of the time it is. So would you like me to read the next quote? Because I could explain it.
Yeah, I would love for you.
Crouchers move through a garden at a stoop, naming, gasping, hurraying, admiring, or coveting plants. Gapers saunter, smiling or sighing at what they find, succumbing to an intangible beatitude that takes them for a brief escape into another dimension. Both sorts of gardener are besotted. Both get their hands dirty, think and talk gardening, but on the threshold of another's gardens, each use a different set of whiskers. By our old buddy Mirabel Osler.
Who writes like everybody used to be able to write.
Exactly. So some gardeners see the forest, other gardeners see the trees.
Right. I can't figure out the whiskers part of it.
I think, I don't know. Like
I don't
cats.
know that part, I guess, but the rest of the paragraph had nothing to do with whiskers. But anyway,
well, I think that has
going.
with cats, I don't know, something with cats' whiskers and, cats.
I guess cats crouch.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe that's it. I don't know.
I don't know. That's just...
But it brings us to our book, which is gorgeous book.
Yeah, you have the book. I do not have the book. The book is The Private Gardens of Santa Barbara, and you have it, so you tell us about it.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so it's The Private Gardens of Santa Barbara, The Art of Outdoor Living. And you and I've not been to Santa Barbara, have you?
No.
I've been all over California, but I've never been to Santa Barbara. Maybe that'll be a goal when everything settles down in California. This is a coffee table book. This is a book to transport you. It's like eating really good hard candy because these gardens are dry. So they're dry gardens mostly. So they have a lot of xeriscaped plants. But here's why I think they work for Oklahoma. I don't know if they work for Indiana. Well, any type of fantasy garden book works for anywhere, really. But for Oklahoma, they work because people have this idea that xeriscaping is a bunch of cacti.
And it is definitely not.
No. In fact, I'm sitting here looking at this one garden, and it has a certain type of rosemary in it. The rosemary matches the clay tiles on top of the roof of this house, this little house. And there's a dry stream bed wall, dry stacked wall. But in front of the wall is a black pennisetum. And so that's a really pretty grass, a really pretty purple fountain grass and it just looks great because they've planted like 3 of them, one on the bottom of the wall and one up the wall. It is just gorgeous and beautiful and shows you what you can do with water and without any, very much anyway. And,
what I like about books like that are from different climates than mine is I try to think about what is making this garden so beautiful. And like you just mentioned, a black grass against a wall. And so that contrast. And so I think about, I'm not going to xeriscape here in Indiana because we get adequate rainfall, except this last month. But how do I create that same look and feel in an Indiana garden? You know, creating contrast between the hardscape and the plants that you use, the plant material, so they stand out.
Yeah, and this is all about landscaping and hardscaping. I'm looking at a beautiful copper sugar kettle, which I've also seen one of those in England, a great big sugar kettle that they made into a fountain, and then they made a rill. And for our listeners who don't know what a rill is, it's where the fountain dumps into a long line that usually goes down steps, and it's a water feature. But this rill is in the center of a circular patio, and around the patio they've done soft, I would say they're natives. I see some California poppies in here and some heliotrope. I don't know if heliotrope's native, but it looks very attractive. And so there's also a lot of views of the ocean. It's exquisite. There's all different types of houses. I'm very impressed with this book. And grateful that they sent it to us for review.
Yeah. We'll recommend it to our readers because you can never have enough books with inspirational pictures and even text to help you think about gardening outside of what you would actually do. And then how you could take some of those ideas. And even though you may not have the staff, the landscape architect, the designer to be able to do that, you can think about some of the ideas in there and how you could bring them into your own garden.
But, anybody can make a flagstone path.
Oh, beautiful.
And that's what this is. So this one's a small cottage with some roses and some, dry plants. You could just substitute whatever plants you want. But it helps you with color and flagstone path. I will be looking at this book all winter. It's really something.
Speaking of that, so we'll put a link in our show notes to that. Okay. So I want to go on to our dirt because this is also something, a very famous gardener. We had 2 quotes from Frank Cabot. Well, there's a documentary on Amazon Prime called The Gardener, which is about Frank Cabot and his garden, which is the famous Les Quatre Vents, the 4 winds, up near Quebec City. Don't make fun of my French. You snorted at my French.
I'm sorry. Don't pronounce the S's. They don't pronounce the S's on the back of words. Anyway,
whatever.
Sorry.
Anyway, Frank Cabot created this fabulous garden. And it's all documented in this documentary that he speaks about. And he has since passed away. And I just found it amazing. And it for 2 reasons. One, the garden is amazing. And the things he did. And of course, he had a lot of money. But the other thing is, it reminds me that I had a chance to go see this garden and I passed it up and I could kick myself every time. It's like a reminder, don't let opportunities slip through your fingers like that.
Right, because you went with GardenCom
to Quebec City and they had an after tour to his garden. And I didn't really know what it was. And it would have meant like 3 more nights in Quebec City. And I thought, I'm just going to come home. I'm not doing the after tours. And then I thought, what an idiot I am. I should have gone.
It also says here in the notes that he founded the Garden Conservancy in 1989 after he visited Ruth Bancroft's garden in California. Have you been to Ruth Bancroft's garden?
No, but you have, haven't you?
I have, yeah. I went with the garden bloggers. Yeah, I know why he probably did that. And her garden is really important because she was the first person to say, we need to use plants that are more adaptable to California, including natives and, low water plants, instead of using other things. The day I went, it was hotter than Hades. And I thought I was going to die, but it was really something. So,
and I think Ruth Bancroft expressed concern to Frank that she didn't know what would happen to her garden after she was gone.
Right.
And so the mission of the Garden Conservancy is to preserve, share, and celebrate America's gardens and diverse gardening traditions for the education and inspiration of the public. And so they try to acquire or take over the management of these gardens after their owners have passed on to preserve them. And they're literally coast to coast.
Right. I think it's modeled similarly to what they do in England.
Yes.
Where they take over properties too.
Yes.
There's some good and some bad to that, but it's better that that certain important things are kept than to let fall completely into ruin.
Right. So we are running out of time, Dee. So we have a garden commission for ourselves for the next week, and that is to finish all of our fall decorations outside.
Right. And this garden commission is from when this is published, not when we're actually recording it.
Right. So we got to get the last of the pansies planted, get some mums out there, bring out the pumpkins, and act like it's fall, because when this comes out, it will be fall the next day.
Wow. Amazing. Also, we're excited to announce that our podcast is now on Amazon Music. If you'd like to use that as your streaming service, we're on about every one of them. I think the only one we're not on is Spotify. Is that right?
We're on Spotify. I don't think we're on iHeartRadio, but I'm working on that.
Oh, that's it. iHeartRadio. That's the only one. And that's okay. We're doing really good. And we've already done our 100th episode last week.
And you have an online Zoom talk coming up that listeners may be interested in.
It's for the Denton County Master Gardeners, and they're doing their Fall Fest, and they can't do it in person this year. So they're doing it on Zoom, and we will have a link to that. And you guys I think you're welcome to sign up. I think there's a small fee. That's all I know.
But you could hear Dee talk.
Dee and 3 or 4 other people who are specialists in Denton County, Texas, which they're just a little bit, they're like one zone. They're 8 and I'm 7. So we can grow stuff they can grow and vice versa.
Very good. So we'll leave a link to that and folks may be interested. We would like to thank everyone for listening to The Garden Angelist. If you like our podcast, please tell your friends about us.
And if you listen on Apple Podcasts, we'd love a 5-star review. Plus hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode.
Yes, and be sure and check out our show notes for links for more information about today's topics, plus links to our own websites. And if you want to help support us, use those affiliate links. If you buy something after clicking through on them, we earn a small commission and it costs you nothing.
And it does cost to put on this podcast. We have to maintain a presence online every month for, that holds all of our podcasts and then sends them out through the streaming services. And if you do that, that really helps us.
It was lovely to chat with you over the garden gate today. Bye until next week.
Bye.